wonderful to see you all. You know, they say that in Vedanta, there needs to be closeness and a personal contact between the student and the teacher. And there is a reason for it. It's of course a fact. It is not something which is a theory or speculation or anything like this. This has been going on for thousands, 10, 100,000s of years. That be an Acharyavan Purusha. You can study a text on your own if you want to, and you will get quite a bit of information. But this is a very, very subtle subject. And until you have a trust, a respect, and a closeness with the teacher, the finer points of the Atma Vidya eludes one. This is how it happens. Preferably, as it used to happen, people would go to a gurukulum and stay with a Vedantic guru for several years. My older Mamaji, Sri Raghubir, was one of those. So my maternal grandfather, Dr. Shankara in Amritsar, I had heard about this. I was obviously not born then. But he sent his son to study with a guru in the Himalayas, I think for about, 6 to 8 years. And then I had a chance to stay with, it was a joint family, so all the uncles and aunts, all 11, 12 of us, we used to stay together. But in all my life, I have a recollection of the type of a person that Raghuvirji was. Incredible. There were a lot of problems about the business and some personal issues and so on. But the way he would be so unmoved by the problems and how gentle he was, I can only recall that now. So there's no substitute for gurukulam. Now, of course, it is very difficult to do that. And so probably the best one can do is what my wife Pami and I were able to do, which is to take 2.5 years of our life. And we were very fortunate to meet a Mahapurusham like Swami Dayanandji. And we studied with him for that time. I have 2 master's degrees before that, a master's in computer science and an MBA. But these 2 years were the hardest and the most pleasant in my life. It was so wonderful. You could not have enough. So it is still possible to do that. Failing that, I congratulate you for taking some time out for at least 1 week to get a glimpse of the type of communication that occurs in this subject matter. It is incomparable. Absolutely. So I'm very happy that you're here, and I look forward to what I would like to do is to get to know you. We have enough time, and so I won't seek you out, but if you would kindly just approach me sometime and just spend a few minutes with me, telling me about where you are in your life, and especially as the classes progress, and if you are resonating with it, and tell me about where you are, and I'd like to give you any advice that I can to hasten, to expedite that whole process. So I would very much like to do that. We have enough time in the afternoons, and even between classes also. So I just wanted to mention that. You know, I was thinking about it the other day. The role of a Vedantic teacher is something like, have you ever seen that PBS show? I think it comes on Sundays, where there is a expert or a number of experts who just sit at one place, and then you have all these people queue up with some things that they want to bring, and they want the expert to evaluate them. It's a very interesting show. And so the role of a Vedantic teacher, in my view, is not completely unlike that. What you bring to, hopefully, an expert, I've been studying this all my life. I have nothing but the best teachers of my life. And so I think I have now come to a point where I understand the essence of what the Vidya is. So I can consider myself to be an expert, somewhat of an expert. And so the role of a Vedantic teacher is like that of a person. Person approaches and says, here I am. I'm this woman, I'm this man, I've got this family, and so on and so forth. And here's my situation. It's kind of like bringing something to be evaluated. And this teacher says, can you please sit down? Because what I'm about to tell you will be so phenomenal that you may not be able to tolerate it. It is so invaluable what you have, you will not believe it. Absolutely not believe it. And in fact, the only issue that the so-called expert has is to convince the person. Supposing you find, some diamond which is $50 million, and the person might say, it looks like a nice shiny thing. Is it worth anything? He looks at it and so on, and he says, please sit down for a minute. You know what this is worth? How much money do you have? She says, I have about $100,000. I'm not sure I can retire. $50 million. So now the biggest issue is, of course, this is where the example breaks down, because there the person doesn't need much convincing. But in the case of Vedantic teaching, the biggest issue is people are not convinced of it. Not really. Really? To say that you're basically immortal, you are not one limited person that you take out yourself to be. You cannot believe it. You are the Ishvara itself. It's something that we just say, nice to know, that's kind of nice. Anything else? You just don't believe that. This is the issue. This is what we have. So the teaching of the Vedantic teaching has to do with convincing a person that you have something so valuable. You're not using it. You're keeping it under wraps. You're not allowing it to permeate your entire life in a way that you cannot believe. This is what you have. This is the role of the Vedantic teacher. You know, this reminds me of this, you must have heard this joke, it has nothing to do with Vedantic teaching. So there was a person who bought a lottery ticket. He's always buying lottery tickets and so on. So he was a heart patient, 60 years old, and he bought the lottery ticket and was gone on a business trip. So he left the ticket with his wife and said, listen, when the numbers are declared, make sure you look at it. And so don't, and let me know. I think I can be traced and I can come back. So she looked at it, and it had $1 million jackpot written on it. So she called his doctor and said, sir, here's what's happened. My husband gave me this lottery ticket for $1 million. And I had lottery ticket, and it's worth $1 million. And I have a feeling that if I just tell him on the phone, he may have a heart attack. So the doctor said, you know, good thinking. Good thinking. So do this. Send the person over to me. I'll handle it. Okay. So she took him to the doctor. And the doctor said, hello, how are you? You know, the normal things. How do you look at the stethoscope and everything? And he said, well, how is life? You know, and so on. And he said, and let me ask you a question. What if you win, all of a sudden, $10,000? He says, oh, $10,000, so that'll be wonderful if I can do that. In fact, I'll give you $1,000 from him right away. So he says, okay, that's good. So then he said, what if it is 250,000? He says, oh, no, I don't know what I would do. This would be just too much. I may have, you know, if you do that, I'll give you $50,000 out of the 250. So he said, okay. And he says, what if you got $1 million? He says, if it is $1 million, I'll give you half of it, 500,000. So at this point, the doctor had a heart attack and he died. So the person said to his wife, what did I do? What did I say? He said, no, nothing has been said. You get yourself full $1 million. You don't have to give him half anymore. It had nothing to do with... So, we're going to take, I think, an important book, which I myself had not studied as of about a year and a half ago. You know, last year when I was here, Swami Viditatmananda ji gave me this. He says, why don't you teach this text? And he said that not only that, I'm also writing a book, and it should be complete by then, and then you can use it as part of the course. So I would check with Shuddhatma ji and said, Shuddhatma ji, have you received that book yet? This is like about 3 months ago, because I had to start preparing. You know, I have to teach this book, which I don't know very well. So he said, no, he hasn't written it yet. So I wrote to him a couple of times, and he's been so busy, he didn't respond to me. In the meantime, something funny happened. This is how Ishvara works, I tell you. It is very strange. He's got his own ways. So I was both a little bit concerned that I don't have the book. So in the meantime, I had COVID in, was it September for me? I think September or October. Both of us were down with COVID. So for 1 week, I was completely isolated. In fact, for a few days, Prami did not have COVID. My wife didn't have COVID. I was the only one. So she wouldn't want to come near me. So I was completely isolated, and I didn't know what to do. So I had a stack of books that Swami Pratyekbodhananda had given me from Swami Akhandananda. And I had never really studied it. I had sort of perused it and so on. But this week I started to really read it. One of the books in that was Aparokshanubhuti. And the more I read it, the more enchanted I got about the messages. And I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. And so much so that I reread it a couple of times. I've read 3 times altogether. So about 2 months ago, I saw that Swami Viditatmananda's book is not coming. I have no idea what commentary he has on it. So I started to really take notes on what I would teach. And to this day, I have still not seen that. I hope to do that this week when I'm here. But in the meantime, I discovered Swami Akhandananda's teachings. And not only I, but I had a chance to confirm his wisdom from a number of other people. Swami Tattva Vedananda Ji loves him. He actually spent a lot of time in Vrindavan. I don't think he ever met Swami Akhandananda. Swami Akhandananda, I believe, took Mahasamadhi in the mid-80s, 1985, something like that. Swami Pratyek Bodhananda was a great devotee of him, Bhagavatam. And I happened to also correspond with Swami Tejomayananda of Chinmaya Mission. We have become good friends because one of our close friends also is a devotee of Swami Tejomayananda. And she told me that he shares your enthusiasm for this Mahatma. So we started corresponding, and he's given me several books also. And anyway, so it wasn't just an isolated thing. I found his wisdom to be completely in consonance with Swami Dayanandji. Examples were different. And yes, one other thing, his native tongue is Hindi, which is my native tongue. And so what I find is that the Vedantic teaching is better done either in Sanskrit or in one of the vernacular languages that has Sanskrit as a main part of it, and Hindi does. And my Sanskrit is okay, but it's not that good. If I read, Shankara Bhashya or some Prakarana Grantha, which I did for, all my life, maybe I can go through 2 or 3 pages a day. At a sitting in the morning. In Hindi, I can peruse 15 to 20 pages. And the vocabulary is the same. I tell people, you look at this word called Adhyatmika Vidya. Adhyatmika Vidya is used very often. So basically, any Vidya can be called Adhyatmika, especially Vedantic, the Vedantic Vidya, Atma Vidya, Brahma Vidya. What does it really mean? What it means is, if you look at the etymology of Adhyatmika Vidya, it says Atma Adhikritya Vidya Yaha. So this is an interesting thing. Very important thing also, not only interesting. So what happens is that we have a lot of knowledge, pursuit of knowledge in our life, a lot of vidya. Some which is scientific, some which is commercial, some which is just normal. We are full of vidya. So this is what we call, another way of describing that would be, it's called Paurushaya Vidya. Purushajanya means that it is generated by human beings, the mind of the human being. Everybody is different. Some are more scholarly, some are less, but Basically, it is Paurushaya Vidya. So, in the Paurushaya Vidya, it can be, but it's generally not Adhyatmika Vidya. How so? So, when we talk about some Vidya like chemistry or computer science or something, Atma is not kept straight, what is called, what's the word for it? And not the center part of it. There is something which is called front and center, something like that. It's not kept front and center. It's not necessary. Of course, everything is done with the Atma. We don't say that. But when you talk about any gains in life or something, Atma is not there. But suppose you have some action in your life where Atma is kept as part of the whole Vidya. That one is called Adhyatmika Vidya. So the etymology is Atma Adhikritya, keeping that as the center. The Vidya which is keeping that as the central is called Adhyatmika Vidya. So what I was saying was that this kind of a translation in English, it's possible. You can make a sentence and say any kind of knowledge where Atma is kept front and center is called Adhyatmika Vidya. You can do that. But it's much more difficult. So what I found was that what was really wonderful for me was to discover the Sanskritized Hindi of Swami Akhandananda. And before that, I spent about 6 years on the advice of Swami Viditatmananda, following the teachings of Swami Maheshananda. Because I think as far as Swami Dayanandji's teachings are concerned, they are embedded in my mind. I spent so much time with him, studying and so on, for 20, 30 years, that I don't need to read his books anymore. His ideas, his emphasis, his personality is all embedded in me. But it is very helpful to have different dimensions of other gurus that talk about the same thing in their own words. So that's why it became very interesting. Anyway, to come back to the last year, I started reading Aparokshanubhuti with Swami Akhandananda. And just last week, Swami Viditatmananda tried to reach me and to see where I am. And I told him, Swamiji, I know I didn't get your book, but in the meantime, I think I have kept myself, and I'm okay now. I'm willing to teach this with that. So before I go further, let me ask you a question. How many of you can read Hindi and understand it? If you can raise your hand. And just keep your hand up for a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think we are going to be okay. I'll tell you why. Because I ordered 25 copies from India. And I think some of you already have it, right? So because I gave it to you from California, I think I have 10 more copies that I sent here, and they were received by Vimala. So we will have that as well. So tomorrow, we will give you, all of you, this book, Swami Viditatmananda's book. And also tomorrow, we will give the Aparokshanubhuti by Swami Akhandananda. So that you have that. You don't have to read, you don't have to study that while you are in the class. Those of you that don't know Hindi, no worries, because that is exactly what I'm going to teach from. And so hopefully things like Adhyatmika Vidya, etc., I'll be able to explain, so you don't really lose anything. But if you do know Hindi, then it'd be good as a textbook to keep back with you, and you can get more details on it and so on. So that said, this is an advanced text. And an advanced text written by none other than Adi Sankara. There's a lot of books, there's some debates whether he actually wrote it or not, but this one there is no debate. It is authentically his. It's a book of 144 verses, and it talks about the full range of what needs to be in one's life. How is that different from a non-advanced text? We'll go over that in much more detail as time goes on. There's much more to be talked about. What is an advanced text, what is not an advanced text. But in short, an advanced text pulls no punches. It straight away tells you what you need to do, what you need to know. And if you're not willing to do that, it's up to you. You're not going to achieve the objectives. So it doesn't coddle you. We will go through a lot of examples of this. So this is what I would call is an advanced text. Now, as a student, it's very possible. In fact, I've already gotten a couple of emails from people and saying, what do you expect from me? Am I an advanced student? Am I capable of this kind of a book? To which I would say, you don't need to be. In fact, let me embellish it in a couple of ways. A text like this, obviously you all have perhaps different experiences, different eligibility. Some of you have been studying Vedanta, some of you may be relatively new, so it's very hard for me to tell. So I'll just have to give you what needs to be done. But there are two ends to it that I'd like to emphasize. The two ends to what is called an advanced text, or the week of an advanced retreat. One of them is that some of you may feel, I've heard this before. I've heard this before. I don't understand. I don't get what is so unique about this book. You will have that feeling. I suggest that you cross over that feeling for the reasons that I will mention again later. I'm just summarizing. Don't make it a big class. The other end of this advanced text is going to be even more interesting. And that will be, many of you may feel, this is too much. I'm not ready to commit to this much. Is it really true? This is what I have to do? And so it's very possible you may tune yourself out. You say, this is not for me. This is meant for sadhus and sannyasis and so on. I'm just a householder. And what is the possibility of my achieving that kind of an understanding? It will come. But what the advanced text does, as I mentioned to you before, I am just going to be honest. I'm not going to coddle you and say, just do sadhana panchakam for a while, or the 13th chapter of the amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam, etc., which is kind of holding a baby by the hands and saying, please do this, please do this. This goes all the way up to the top. And my suggestion to both of the people would be, don't need to have a feeling that I've read it all before, I've had it before, this is new, that this is not new, or to say this is too much, because we will end the books with saying this is what one needs to. We will begin the book with saying this is what you need to do. So both ends of the spectrum have to be kept in mind. So my advice would be, do the best you can to see how much each one of us can imbibe and see if we can learn from it, even though we may not be able to be to feel, yes, this is what makes sense, I am going to do this. It may not happen. But, and you know, the other thing is interesting, any book is an advanced book, but the basic structure of the teaching is kept, which is Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. So even in this book, advanced as it is still going to have eligibility in the beginning. Shravanam, what is it that we are talking about? What is Atma Vidya? What is ignorance? This is all the Shravanam. Then there will be, this is how you need to analyze it, because we are unable to analyze some of the basic aspects of the teaching by ourselves. We need the help of the Shastra. So it gives it to you. So the Mananam has to be done. But then to seal the deal, you need Nididhyasanam. And we have a wonderful ending with that. In fact, for those of you that have been studying with me for the last, I think 4 or 5 months in this Gita class on Saturday morning, we begin that Gita class with going into the Nididhyasanam section of Aparokshanubhuti. So for some of you it may be a repetition, but I think that I will consolidate it so that you will strengthen your understanding. That was really something new to me also. I didn't realize how wonderfully Nididhyasanam was done. So that's the structure of the book. And this is what we're going to do. So we have about 18 to 20 classes. I think I will end up taking maybe 40% of the verses. And I will see if needs to be sped up a little bit or slowed down as we progress. I have a lesson plan that I've made up for myself. So we will go through each one of them. I would say in general, it is not the classical way where you read a text, a verse, a shloka, and see the meaning of the shloka, and then comment on it. We have not enough time to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is to introduce individual conceptual topics based on the shlokas, of course, but just talk about the topic itself in my own words, and then bring in the shloka as a confirmation of it. So it's the other way around. One end is that you just go through the shloka, then you make a commentary. The other one is that you conceptualize it in terms of what we can understand, and then bring in the shloka as a support. It's the latter one that I will generally be doing. Not always, but in general, this is what I will be doing. So with that, we will start the class tomorrow. I think as far as the conducted meditation goes, we will start at the very, very basics. It is always good to do that. You've heard that many, many times before, but I always like to do that. But then progress very rapidly and borrow ideas from the Nididhyasanam section and actually do more advanced meditation for the rest of the week. And Then as far as satsang goes, so the only other thing that I had mentioned to you before, I think you know that by now, that the 1 hour may not be enough for you to ask and for me to answer questions. It'll be just purely just listening. Please make a note of things that you have some doubts on, and we will look at it in the evening class at the satsang time. I'm hoping Swami Viditatmananda will also be here. I don't know what his program is. I'll find out. If he's here, then I will request him to take the satsang. Then if he's not there, you're stuck with me. So let us see how it progresses. Really look forward to a dialogue and getting to know your level of understanding, your appreciation, and your challenges in life as much as 1 week will allow. So with that, we will, you can, I think, why don't we wait until tomorrow morning, and we'll do all the distribution of the book tomorrow. I'll bring the other book also. So we'll do it that way. So with that, let me close the class, and then in the next few minutes, if you had any questions from me, I would be very happy to answer it, but let me just close it with a prayer. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Any questions or observations or anything I can... Yeah. Atma Bodha is not as hard-hitting. The question is, how is the Atma Bodha different from Aparokshanubhuti? So that goes to the words themselves. The differences are embedded in the words. So Aparokshanubhuti, we'll go into this in more detail tomorrow, which just says this is the personal experience. Therefore, so the Atma Bodha is the beginning, whereas this is the ending in that way. This is what I would call a more advanced text of it. The topic remains the same. It is the same Atma, Anatma, same all of that. But the way the logics given, the help in overcoming doubts about it is more acutely done in the Aparokshanubhuti than in the Atma Bodha. Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry, right?
Where during his period of life and teaching did he write this particular text? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know that. I would imagine that so Adi Shankara's life is just a remarkable one. It's very hard to figure out how can a single person can do so much. Very hard, I can't visualize. They say that I mean, in a way, all of us are, they say an avatar of Shiva. All of us are an avatar of Shiva. But the ones that are born with an extraordinary mind are called the real avatars. And so they say that He is an avatar of Shiva himself. My guess would be that he would compose it rather late in his life, just because of the advanced nature of it and so on. But I don't know. I'm not sure about that. One interesting thing is that I think the simplicity of the Sanskritam that he uses, it tells us that's his hymn. Shankara is used to not writing very difficult Sanskrit. His exposition, this is what is called a bhashya. The bhashya means as though you're talking to someone. And this is exactly right. You just feel, you will see that when we study this, you will see that it is kind of like talking. And so it just means that it is authentically Adi Sankara. Yeah, this much I can tell. But where in his life he took it, I don't know.
How many years did he live?
They say 32. Hard to believe. Because not only was he a teacher, but he was also a social reformer, because India was deeply under the spell of Buddhism at that time, as you know. And this is a topic I might spend a little bit more time on, because I actually gave us a talk recently. There is a organization that is trying to build up the legacy in a more defined manner. I forget the name of the organization. It's called Indic Academy. Indic Academy. So I have a friend, Prasad Kaipa, who is very involved with that. So 2 years ago, he had invited me to give a talk. And at that time, I had given a talk about Adi Shankara's four the four principal Shishyas. So lo and behold, I'm in the middle of preparing for Aparokshanubhuti, and he says, we have another one of those, we'd like you to give another talk. And usually I don't just do it, I have to really study it and so on. So I said to Prasad that if you allow me to use this topic, then I will talk, which I have been looking at in a Mandukya Karika book by Swami Akhandananda in the last 6 months. And there he was started to compare Adi Shankara with his Paramaguru. And so differences in style. So I spoke about that in this 1-hour talk just 2 weeks ago. So I'll summarize that for you, as to where Adi Shankara, what was his calling in life, what was his emphasis, as opposed to his Paramaguru, which is Gaudapadacharya, who wrote the Karika. So in the classes, I'll discuss it. I'll remember to please to mention that as well. Okay, nothing else. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Hari Om.